On their face, president of Ultimate Fighting Championship Dana White and Congressman George Santos, they don't really have that much in common, except they both recently have done morally reprehensible things and skated with no real consequences. Santos is still a congressman despite a string of lies and fabrications, extraordinary even by the low standards of Washington. And Dana White still has his job as president of USC, despite video of him slapping his wife. No, seriously, you can see the video from New Year's Eve. He slapped his wife. He's not charged with any crime, and he's not leaving, nor has he been fired from his job at UFC.
What should the repercussions be? You tell me. Me leaving hurts the company, hurts my employees, hurts the fighters. Doesn't hurt me. We've had plenty of discussions internally with Ari, ESPN. Nobody's happy. Nobody's happy about this, you know. Neither am I.
Ari is Ari Emanuel, CEO of Endeavor that owns UFC. Again, two men who, by all reasonable standards, should be canceled, fired, perhaps even prosecuted, and haven't been. Sarah Rumpf is here, contributing editor at Mediaite. Sarah, good to see you. The real easy answer is, right, powerful men get special privileges, blah, 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 blah. On the other hand, Dana White allegedly did hit his wife in Mexico. There's not jurisdiction for U.S. police, on and on and on. How much of this is just be defiant long enough and a certain group of people know the media is going to move on?
Well, I mean, I think we had the quintessential example of that with the previous president, where he, near the end of the 2016 campaign, he was caught on video admitting to sexually assaulting women. Grabbing women by whatever without their consent is assault, period. And he still got elected. And he bulldozed through that. There was a half-hearted sort of apology that he walked back, and then the whole track record of Trump's time in the spotlight has been refusing to admit he never did anything wrong. And if he did something wrong, it's because you woke silly snowflakes are freaking out about nonsense. So, you know, you can't blame other guys in the spotlight for saying, hey, let me try that trick too.
The flip side of this, right, the guy who didn't learn that lesson was Al Franken, senator of Minnesota.
Yeah, and you know, I've seen that example come up a lot. I've heard various accounts of the picture that was taken, that whether it was consensual or not. I mean, at worst, it definitely wasn't anything that injured her.
No, I get the point. The point being is that he resigned so quickly, and you think I think about, though, somebody like George Santos, the congressman who resume is fake in every sense of the word, and lied about literally everything in his life and continues to.
Is his name even George?
Well, we don't know. I haven't seen his birth certificate. I don't know if you have either. This is him. This is him, of all places, with Matt Gaetz on Steve Bannon's War Room show. Take a listen.
I wish well all of their opinions, but I was elected by 142,000 people. Until those same 142,000 people tell me they don't want me, we'll find out in 2 years. I've worked my entire life. I've lived an honest life. I've never been accused, sued of any bad doing.
Except the time you were accused of fraud and theft in Brazil. But we step aside from that point. At some point, though, is the media going to get tired of chasing him down corridors on Capitol Hill, and they move on to whatever the next scandal is, be it classified documents in Joe Biden's basement?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely see the strategy that people are hoping there will be scandal fatigue. And, you know, again, I think that some of the media are asking the wrong questions about George Santos. It's not, did you lie on this specific issue? He keeps going back to say the 142,000 voters voted for him. Well, they voted for who graduated from Baruch College, graduated from NYU, worked for Goldman Sachs. I mean, a big part of the Republican platform this year was the economy and inflation. And he presented himself as somebody with the credentials, both education and professional, that were directly related to that top issue. He said for his heavily Jewish district that he himself was of Jewish ancestry and had relatives in the Holocaust and understood and empathized with their issues and concerns. That's who they voted for, and that man does not. So,
right.
You know, the question, will you resign? It's, you know, we're asking simplified questions for a complicated scheme And of course, it ends up being this stupid soundbite and him running down the hallway, and it's not actually getting to the issue. He's skating right now because the media is letting him.
Why are they, you think?
It takes a lot longer to dig into that complicated issue. I mean, look how long it took me to say all of that rather than just yell down a hallway, George Santos, will you resign? That makes a fun soundbite for your cable news station to have on the air as you're the person in the microphone in his face for those 7.5 seconds. But it's a lot harder to explain the full spectrum of what his fraud is. Not a specific resume line embellishment. His fraud is presenting himself to his voters as somebody who could do something, and he's not who he says he was. And it's the same with the Dana White thing. He presents himself as, I made the decision to not punish myself, but he didn't actually say there was any accountability in his own mind. I mean, he didn't say, I'm going to counseling. I mean, this is a big, strong, muscular man that slapped a woman. There's not ever any good excuse for that.
The obvious answer, the one way out of it always, right, is I'm going to rehab. That's typically the way everybody gets out of stuff.
Yeah, and then that at least shows some acknowledgement that something went wrong and a desire to do better and a desire to prevent the same problem from happening again. And I saw zero contrition in anything that he was saying and zero acknowledgement that he should try to make sure that never happens again. All he just said, shrugged, is, oh, it would hurt the company if I left. Like he's some special magical unicorn and the only guy who can possibly head up the UFC. I'm skeptical of that.
Yeah. Well, this goes back to the last question, then we'll let you go. But what is the answer here? Except to take that in most cases and in most scandals, you pointed out being true for Trump, it's true for George Santos so far, for Dana White, that if you just hold on long enough, you can make it through.
I think that we have to go back to what kind of individual accountability do we want as good, moral, ethical humans. We should ask for contrition and apologies and a desire to do better and celebrate when somebody does that. I'm not a fan of this so-called cancel culture and abolishing anyone from any professional opportunities forever because they tweeted something awful once. But we need to encourage actual contrition and redemption and apologies and push for that. This idea that you can just pretend nothing bad happened and it's okay. No. That's not the answer.
Well, it is so far. It's good to see you, Sarah. Thank you very much.
Call me Pollyanna. Have a good night.
I like it. Always hopeful.